Well, I think I may have finally found my go-to gravel handlebar for my 2021 Specialized Diverge. And that's the Ritchey Comp VentureMax handlebars here that have replaced my Ritchey Beacon handlebars that I had been riding for the past 6 or 7 weeks. Now, if you want to see what I thought about the Ritchey Comp Beacon handlebars, then definitely check out this video up here at some point for a full review. The link is down in the description as well, so feel free to have a look if you're interested. But in this video, I want to share my experiences and highlight what I like and dislike about these Ritchey Comp VentureMax handlebars and why I think these bars may have found a permanent home on my all-road bike. Now, if this is your first time here, thanks for dropping by. This channel features product reviews, technical how-tos, and some pretty nerdy deep dives into the world of cycling, all filtered through an extra average cyclist with a technical background. If you like this type of content, then hitting the subscribe button is the best way to let me know and to make sure you don't miss out on future videos like this. Now, with so many products to choose from right now, it's hard to believe that there are still gaps in the market for handlebars with specific dimensions, but we always want what we can't have, right? Well, when I was first testing out the Ritchey Beacon handlebars, I thought they were going to be perfect for my riding style with the shallow drop, short reach, and super flared drops for stability. And if you go back and check out the review on the Beacon bars, you will see that I did like them for the most part. Now, probably my biggest gripe about the Beacons was actually that the 36 degrees of flare was a bit too much for me. Aside from making the controls harder to access from the hoods, the flare angle actually made riding in the hoods less comfortable as your hands end up resting on the rounded edges of the tops of the hoods, creating pressure points in the worst possible place. So despite wanting to like the Beacon bars so much, I had to accept that they just weren't going to work out for me in the long run. So after a bunch of research into several different brands, I actually landed on the Beacon's closest relative, the Ritchey VentureMax handlebar. Now, I also bought this bar in the comp level, which is constructed from a double-butted 6061 alloy and retails for just over $40 US, which by today's standards is a bargain. As with many of Ritchey's components, you could spend about double and get the WCS version, which by all accounts is identical, save for a different alloy and a triple-butted construction. Now, I don't doubt that there's probably some perceptible benefit in shelling out for the WCS version, but I'm perfectly happy with the comp line of components for my purposes. These bars here have a drop of 102 millimeters, 76 millimeters of reach, 6 degrees of back sweep, 6 degrees of flare out, and 24 degrees of flare in the drops. In a size 42, they're claimed to weigh 310 grams, which is pretty respectable, but also not a major consideration for me, as I think there are other places on the bike with higher potential for weight reduction. Now, when looking at the vast range of bars available on the market, one of the things that motivated me to try the VentureMax bars is primarily that the flare angle on the drops is a more modest 24 degrees as opposed to the extreme 36 degrees on the Beacons. Coming from my stock Specialized hover bars with 12 degrees of flare, which I felt wasn't quite enough, the 24 degree flare of the VentureMax bars perfectly split the difference, but more on that in a little bit. Now, I know there are other bars out there on the market with 24 degrees of flare at the drops, but I also considered a number of different factors, including the reach and the drop numbers, and of course, the price. When going from the Beacons to the VentureMax bars, the reach is extended by 11 millimeters from 65 to 76, and the drop is increased by 22 millimeters, going from a ridiculously shallow 80 millimeters to a more traditional but still reasonably shallow 102 millimeters. These are the numbers that I was a bit concerned about because I really did like the short reach and shallow drop on the Beacon bars. When actually riding the VentureMax bars, I definitely did notice the extension in reach as I found myself periodically trying to scoop my hands back on the hoods, and in the drops, I definitely felt like it was a more traditional road drop bar in that I was more hunched over, which as a pretty average rider made it a little bit more challenging to settle in and stay there for extended periods of time. Still, the VentureMax drops are pretty conservative as road bars go. I think I just got used to the ultra short reach and drop numbers on the Beacon bars, and I just need a little bit longer to get used to the VentureMax dimensions. And down the line, if I really decide that the reach is too long, a shorter stem is all I need to remedy the issue. Now, the biggest takeaway from trying out a number of different bars is that the flare angle of the drops is actually a pretty key consideration when buying new handlebars. The stock Specialized hover bars that came on this bike had 12 degrees of flare, which for all intents and purposes felt pretty much like a standard zero flare bar, and I knew I wanted a little bit more. Now, at the other extreme, the Beacons at 36 degrees of flare proved to be too much as it became cumbersome to get my fingers out and around the levers every time I needed to shift or brake from the hoods. Now, the VentureMax bars here at 24 degrees of flare have proven to be the Goldilocks number, for me at least, as the drops feel adequately wide and stable, but the controls are still comfortably accessible from the hoods and the drops. I no longer have to awkwardly rotate my wrists inward to access the levers, and braking and shifting from the hoods feels natural and effortless once again. Now, of course, the choice of bars is a very personal one, and everyone's priorities are going to be a little bit different, but as far as the Ritchey VentureMax bars go, I think they're about as close to my ideal configuration as far as gravel bars go. And at just over $40 US, they're pretty hard to beat. There are, however, a couple of things that I should note about these bars that may help inform your decision if you're considering them. Now, the first is the diameter of the bars. Most handlebars have top sections that are either a bit larger in diameter or have some type of ergonomic shape to them. For instance, the Beacon bars had this nice flattened sort of pseudo arrow shape to the tops that was actually pretty comfortable. Now, in the case of the VentureMax bars, the round tops have the same diameter as the drops, and it feels a little bit skinny in the hands when riding on the tops. It's not a big deal, however, as you can always double up on bar tape in this area, or you could use one of the many different types of bar cushioning material under the tape to customize your fit. Now, the second thing to note is the unmistakable bio bend in the drop. Now, this odd looking hump here is meant to match the natural contour of your palm as you grip the drops, and while it looks kind of strange, it's actually pretty comfortable. The one gripe that I have about the bio bend is that it presumes the rider will only grip the bars in one location on the drops. Now, most of the time, I do naturally want to grip the bar right where the bio bend is, but once in a while, I'd like to slide back a little bit and grip the drops near the very end, or other times when descending, I tend to like to wedge my hands right up against the inside of the drops for maximum comfort and security. Now, with the bio bend, any hand position that's not right on top of the humps tends to feel a little bit off. Again, it's not a huge deal though, it's just something to consider. So wrapping things up, I'd say for the money, it's pretty hard to beat the Ritchey Comp line of products. I'd liken them to the Shimano 105 group set, as they're totally utilitarian, functional and reliable without any embellishments at a very reasonable price point. Now, these Ritchey Comp VentureMax handlebars here have certainly impressed me with their price, and the fit is just about spot on for me, with the only adjustment I might consider being a shorter stem to bring the reach in a little bit. Now, of course, choosing your finishing kit on your bike is totally personal, and components like handlebars, pedals, and saddles are about as personal as your choice of cycling shorts. But thankfully, this is a great time to have cycling as a hobby, as there are so many awesome products out there on the market. And truthfully, I think I might have just as much fun tinkering with bike setup and trying out new products as I do actually going for rides. So it's kind of like two hobbies in one, really. Anyways, that's going to do it for this one. If you're interested, feel free to check out this video up here for my thoughts on the Ritchey Beacon handlebars, or if you want, you can poke around some of my other product reviews in this playlist down here. Now, as always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time.